been interesting. 2017 has been an incredible year for business aviation, and the market for pre-owned aircraft is exceptional. All of the brokers that we're working with right now have been very, very busy with all of the activities. We're starting to see in each aircraft model, especially starting with the super midsize and up, that there's a tremendous amount of demand. For example, on the Challenger 300, I believe 45 aircraft have sold in the last 12 months. With the G550, 44 have. And so if you think about that amount of consumption in a 12-month period, that hasn't happened in a very long time. I often get asked the question, what's going on with the Trump bump? And what we find at Mente is that right after the election, there was a significant amount of interest in aircraft, and it seemed like that his election unlocked some pent-up demand. In 2017, we've seen that has been consistent throughout the year. What we're beginning to see now with pricing is that it's starting to stabilize across all markets. And the US right now is definitely leading. I think there's a lot of optimism that's based into potential tax reform and what's going to happen here in the US, and that's primarily resulted because of the Trump election. 2017 has been, in our opinion, an incredible year. What we've seen almost in every market is quite a bit of good aircraft that have been sold and reduction in the number of total units for sale. We often get asked whether or not a recovery is in place, and I think it's maybe premature to say that yet. What we're calling it at Mente is basically a priceless recovery, in that the activity in the market is increasing, the number of units are selling. We haven't seen yet a rise in the pricing across the board. In certain cases, we're seeing that, but I think in general, it's going to be a while before we see a pricing increase. But if what we see right now continues into 2018, we are definitely on the front edge of a recovery. One of the things that we deal with on a frequent basis is the discrepancy between where buyers think the aircraft can be purchased and sellers and what they hope to achieve. What we've seen over the last 12 months is that sellers are becoming much more realistic in terms of what the aircraft will sell for. And I think buyers now are becoming realistic in terms of where the market really is. And what we think at Mente is that there's a balance and a fairly good set of equilibrium pressures going on in the market, meaning that buyers and sellers are becoming more in check. We recently listed a Challenger 300, and the seller was expecting a number somewhere in the mid-tens. We actually told them to price the aircraft a little bit higher because we think that the market may be moving up just because of the lack of inventory in that marketplace. One of the pressures that we have on the industry right now is the complexity of the deals. We're starting to see, it's felt like a general trend over the last couple of years has been that deals are getting more complex. We're starting to see a lot of things that are happening with regard to the transactions, especially on the technical side. One of the things that's influencing buyers is their desire to have ADS-B and fans and CPDLC included in the aircraft when it sells. A lot of airplanes don't have that equipment, and so that process, the adding of the equipment happens during the pre-buy process, which extends the pre-buys. I think that also people are very, very cautious moving into transactions, so we're seeing a lot of pressure and legal review of documents where before not that it wasn't done, but there's a whole nother level of scrutiny that's going on in every transaction. The other complexity that's added right now is what's going on in the financing world. In the US, we feel like that the financing market is fairly stable. Internationally, there aren't as many resources as there have historically been, and so that is a complexity that we're all dealing with. In the US, I think we're fine, but in the international markets, it's a much more complicated process. Frequently, we are approached by buyers who are contemplating their first aircraft. They're either moving out of fractional or charter, and they're at that point where they feel like that the aircraft will either support their personal or their business life. When we are engaging with a client on a fleet plan to help them identify what the right aircraft is, we really start with a mission profile and help them understand what the demand level is going to be for the aircraft. When we start there, we can make sure that we are buying the exact right asset that fits their profile so that they can benefit from the aircraft going forward. What we don't ever want to do is do a really good job buying the wrong aircraft. So understanding the mission profile, building a good team to support the buyer is critical. We typically would recommend that someone have a very good broker, a technical consultant, a very good aviation attorney, legal counsel, management company if they're going to be involved, or flight department, and making sure that all of those team members fit together well to support the process. And typically when you can do that team building on the front end and the planning, then the transaction process goes extremely well.